welcome to Free Mama TV. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Great to be here, Lauren.
Awesome. Well, let's dive right in. So you run a business with your beautiful wife called Freelance U.
Yes,
What is
yes,
Freelance U? I
famously.
know, yeah, we both got our swag on today.
Well,
We are
well, I,
like,
I know you wear your swag, so I thought it's probably appropriate for me to wear mine as well. So that's
you
what
know
I'm
what's
sporting
sad?
today.
It's like my Steve Jobs, like Mark Zuckerberg. Like I just figured if I put like my logo and swag, like if I put it on enough clothes, I wouldn't have to think about what I wear. It's a
It's
thing,
so true.
So
It's funny. Years ago, Lauren, we did our first run of these shirts. It was about 4 years ago, and the printer got the color wrong. So it turned out to be like this really dark blue. It didn't look good at all. And so for the
we've had
longest
that
time, I
happen.
would wear all the bad shirts around the house. Like it was like all the girls are like, "Do you have any other clothes other than your free you?" I'm like, "I'm just working my way through my extra larges. I have like
Yeah.
45 of them." And so
Yeah. Yeah. What am I going to do with them?
exactly.
You
So it's
don't
been a
want your
part of my wardrobe.
brand certain places. I got it. I got it. I love
Yeah.
it. Well, welcome. Tell us
Yes.
what is Freelance You?
Well, Freelance U was, it kind of came out of actually a drive that my wife and I did. I think it was back in 2007. We were working remotely with a software company, and the company had gone through major growth, and it had just hired 40 team members. And they had put me in charge of training all the team members. And so I was doing videos and manuals. I was trying to figure out how to onboard all these people. And it was a totally remote staff. There were 40 of us working all over the world. And I realized that I really loved this idea of teaching and training. And a lot of them we'd classify now under the umbrella of virtual assistants. And so we were driving one day and there was an accident and we got detoured 6 hours on this road trip. And we started to vision cast about what would it look like to create some sort of university for VAs that would help them to teach the skills that we just taught these 40 people, and they could do it for other companies. And we thought, well, this could take off. Maybe this could be a thing. We were right. It has been a thing. And so that's where the sort of the idea of Freelance University came about. It was originally training virtual assistants. We now kind of brought it into a lot of different areas where we teach and train, online business managers, copywriters, people that edit videos, social media people. So we got a lot of different tracks to help people level up their skills so that they can offer awesome services to their clients. And so this is year 13. And yeah, we have, I think, students in 75 countries now. So it's been
Wow.
pretty wild to see the journey from that initial drive of saying, what would it, you know how it is, Lauren, when you start a business, you're like, what would it look like if I did this? Would it ever, and a lot of times people have those ideas and they never come to fruition. It's
Yeah.
so meaningful to say, wow, I can look back and say, I'm glad we got detoured and had this really amazing conversation that led to a business of 13 years.
That's amazing. 75 countries. Congratulations.
Mhm.
Well, we obviously there's a lot of synergy between what you do and what I do.
Yeah.
And I know something that so many free mamas, when they come into my world, because a lot of the people who first come to the free mama movement, they don't even know about freelancing, or they've heard the word, but to them, they associate it with something that's maybe not accessible to them. Like maybe they think of a freelance photographer, or they're thinking of people writing code and they're like, well, I can't do that, or I don't want to do that. So this doesn't apply to me. And so
Mhm.
one of the things that I hear quite often is
Yeah.
like, how do I figure out what I can do? How do I figure out what I'm good at? How do I figure out kind of a niche that I can serve, or a thing that I might be good at, but also because I don't want to trade in my 9 to 5 for something that I also don't enjoy doing. So I want to talk to you today about discovering your niche, because I'm sure this is something you've had to help your students navigate as well, so that they know where to focus and where to put their energy.
Absolutely. I even think for myself, I never thought that I would be a course creator, back in 2008. And even back then, I never realized that I would be doing education, and that became my niche. And I'll have to tell you, and one of the things I want to start off by saying is that sometimes, we try to figure out our passion and then we pursue our niche. But
Yeah.
then sometimes along the way, we pursue our niche, we pursue an area or a direction, and something happens, we suddenly get excited about what we're doing and we get passionate. And I remember myself creating my very first course in 2008. It was terrible, Lauren. It was like I was so stiff on video, and had paralysis by analysis, or whatever that expression is. And I just took hours and hours. It took me 8 months actually to get that first course out. I was working and doing other things, but I was dying a slow death in this course. Fast forward, I think I've created like 400 courses now, somewhere along that realm, like a lot of courses and workshops. And I love it. Like, I am passionate about it. So I think sometimes figuring out your niche is not always leading with your passion. Sometimes it's discovered over time, as what we have experienced. But what we teach our students, and there's lots of things we can talk about as it relates to niche, but the thing that I have found most helpful, and I think a lot of our students have, is what we call the 4 Ps to discovering what you want to be and what you want to become. And I call it, and this is the name I came up with. I like the show The Matrix. I'm dating myself. It was like Keanu Reeves years ago.
I got you. I'm down.
The trilogy. It was pretty awesome. Anyway, so this is called the niche or niche identification matrix. And this is kind of an idea. It's not like foolproof, but it gives you sort of a framework for you to think about what you might want to do. And you're right. When you get into freelancing, there's so many cool things you can do now. And so where do you start? What do you focus on? And so the first P is personality. And so all of you that are tuning in today or listening to this, you are wired differently. You were created differently. You might be somebody that is really sort of like detail oriented, and you're a numbers person, or some of you are really a connector, like you're a community builder. They get around you and people just want to talk to you and you want to talk to them. And so when you're thinking about what you want to do, you want it to have some alignment with your personality, that there wouldn't be sort of this disconnect. So for example, my father-in-law is an accountant. He's been an accountant for many years, but he's always been a square peg in a round hole. He never fit the personality of accountant because he's a bigger than life personality. And I'm not generalizing that accountants are bean counters and they only like numbers and they don't like people, but there is that personality that tends to be more wired for that. And so he's had this his whole career. He's been very successful, but he's like, I love people more than I love numbers. So again, trying to figure out a niche that fits your personality. So that's the first one. And so when we talk about some different areas today, you want to say, how will this align with kind of me, kind of how I'm wired? And so for me, when I got into course creation, I realized that I love teaching. Like, I love teaching and facilitating. And I had done a lot of in-person stuff, but I'd never done the online thing. And so it very much, course creation fits with my personality. The second area, Lauren, is
time out really quick before we go to number 2. No, that's good. I'm like, you're like ready to get through it. And I'm like, wait, we got to talk about this. Totally, so with my students, I know that sometimes there's almost like a little resistance to that self-awareness, right? Like, we kind of know who we are, but do we really, like, sometimes we maybe want to focus on where we see an opportunity, even though there is that, I love the word alignment, by the way, like it's like, but I see everybody posting for this thing. And but then we get into this. And so do you have any tips for people who maybe there's that resistance to really knowing their personality? Like, should they ask their friends and family? Do they need to like journal their past history? Like, what are ways for them to really get honest with themselves about the things that would align with their personality?
Yeah, you're totally right that there's a disconnect for a lot of reasons as to even our own abilities and what we think we're good at.
Yeah.
We sometimes, through life, through experience, through some of you listening may have had tough backgrounds, or you've had difficult experiences in life, and that's kind of marred how you view yourself. And so you might have a spouse that says, you're the most awesome person on the planet, and there's no one better than you. And then you look at yourself and say, well, I'm less than awesome. Actually, I'm not. I feel very imperfect and a flawed human being. So I love what you said. I mean, I think you ask the people that they could clearly assess who you are. People that love you, that support you, that challenge you as well, that are willing to have the hard conversations with you and tell you, the things that you're really good at. So people that know you, you'd ask them, what do you think? How do you think I'm wired? Like, what kind of things do you think I would be suited for? So I agree. Definitely looking outside yourself. I mean, you have to have some self-reflection too, but definitely looking at the people that know you well and asking, how am I wired? I think that would be definitely a big step for sure.
That's awesome. All right, take us to P number two.
P number two is passion. We talked a little bit about it on the outset. And when I say passion, it's kind of an overarching term for, hey, I might be interested in this too. So it doesn't mean that it's white hot passion for for spreadsheets or whatever floats your boat in terms of your interest area. But I put it into this area where you say, ask the question, would this be something that I potentially would be interested in doing? And so it could be, for example, let's say you love Facebook and you're not using it from a commercial standpoint. You're not making money from Facebook. You're not offering a Facebook management service, but you sure love to connect with Facebook and you're very good at it. And so there might be this idea that, hey, I enjoy Facebook enough to maybe you would take a course with us or somewhere else on Facebook marketing and say, hey, my interest in Facebook, does it carry over to actually offering a service, doing Facebook ads for people? And so it's interesting. There was a gal that years ago came to our university and she was a social media person. She would probably say more time than she should on social media. And she just assumed she'd be a social media manager. She came in saying, I'm going to take we have about 9 social media courses. But our core one is our social media management course. And she just assumed that is what I'm meant to do. And she took it. And she said, Craig, no offense, your training is awesome, but I've just realized I actually just want to keep it personal. I don't want to do social media as a service. I just want to hang out with my friends and connect and do funny videos or whatever I'm doing on Instagram or Facebook. And then she took our project management track and realized, no, I'm more suited to being an online business manager because I love organizing people and building their systems and their workflows. So yeah, I think sometimes even though you might have an interest area, it requires you to do some research and to even take some classes and investigate before you recognize whether it's going to be the ultimate thing that you should do.
I love
So yeah.
I heard this analogy. I think I first heard it from Russell Brunson, but of like, we think, like you said, like we think this passion is going to be this thing that just hits us with the truck and we just know, right? Like we just
Yes.
know this is the thing I'm supposed to do. And that may happen for some people, but I don't think that happens for most of us. And he talked about this idea of like, you're just looking for that little spark. Like if you imagine like a lighter, like you're looking for that little spark, but then you have to feed the spark. And so like, that's what this girl did, right? She took the social media, she tried to feed the spark, but it didn't ignite. Like it didn't turn into a passion. So then she found, okay, where's another little spark? Project management. And then this flame blew, right? And now she gets to do the online business management. So I think I don't know, that analogy has kept with me for these years of like, it's not this huge like billboard as you drive by that's like, you are destined to do this thing. Like, it's more like, just look for the little spark and then feed it and see which becomes a flame. And you'll know, like, I do think that once you start to pursue it and take action, you'll have an awareness of like, oh, this is the direction I'm going to keep going. So I love
Absolutely. And just to add to that, there's other aspects of passion to the work we do. And so, for example, let's use social media. Let's use this gal. And let's say she continued doing social media, but now she's at home with her kids more. And so she's spending more time with her children. She sees her husband more. She has a more flexible schedule. Her lifestyle has suddenly been transformed. So this may be something she likes doing, but the overall picture is that her life, she's passionate about this new lifestyle she has.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that she shouldn't course correct at some point, but I think we've seen that a lot with our students that they're like, hey, I like bookkeeping. I do it for 5 clients on a retainer, but I have the most flexible schedule in the world. I'm on all my kids' field trips and I have, this great life. And so sometimes over time, you start to love this area because of what it brings to your life. Now, of course, I want you to find your ultimate thing, but a lot of you listening to this might be just looking more for a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like you and your husband have your family, Lauren, and then Kelly and I mean, we love our lifestyle.
Yeah.
That's, it doesn't mean I love everything I do in my business at times, but I love the lifestyle that I've had and the time that I've had with my kids as they get older.
That's so good. And I think with the word passion too, and I talk about this sometimes as well, you don't have to monetize all of your passions either. And that's kind of in alignment with what you're saying. Like, I'm passionate about dancing. I'm passionate about group fitness. I don't want to go become a group fitness instructor, but I'm grateful that on Wednesdays at 10 a.m., if I want to go take a class, I can do that. Like, and so I love reconciling that because I think it can be easy when you see certain people online or certain successful, whatever you're, whoever you're looking up to, and you're kind of like almost disappointed if you don't have kind of that same expectation. But I think if we look at, and answer the question, what do I really want? Sometimes finding something that you enjoy, but maybe you wouldn't describe yourself as passionate about, if it gets you the end result that you are passionate about, you're still going to have
Yeah,
a
yeah. And like you said, the fireworks don't always go off right away, with this one idea. It's like, it's like I'm Canadian, and so we snowboard in our world. We have lots of mountains, and
I
maybe
tried
in
that
your
in February. It didn't go well.
well, that's case in point. What I was going to share was that for those of you that are listening to this, if you think back to the first time you snowboard, and I may be taking you back to a painful, traumatic experience, you typically roll down the hill. Like you can't, you're just going along, and then boom, you face plant. And you walk away from that experience saying, this is the worst thing I've ever done in my life. And yet you do it again and again. And now you'll get somebody that's like, I can't wait to get to the mountains and snowboard. It didn't begin there. It landed there eventually. So that's kind of like our niches sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. And that's fresh because I literally just took a trip this year. That was on my bucket list for 2021. Learn how to ski and snowboard. I learned
Yes.
how to ski. I cannot say that I learned how to snowboard, but I tried snowboarding. So
Yeah, I'm not that good either.
all right. What's our third P?
Third P is proficiencies. So this could be, you might call these your unique abilities. You might call these your core competencies. This is sort of a mapping of your background. And so looking at, what are your work skills that you have, or even your personal qualities that apply to work? What is your background? Some of you might have a background in project management. You might have a background in IT. You might have a background in office administration. And so we're big on, as much as we love to level up people's skills and do that at the university, we recognize that our audience come with many gifts and many abilities that sometimes they just need to connect the dots and say, how do I transfer X, Y, and Z into this new pathway? And so, you think of in the last year, our world went very much remote. Companies that never thought they would go, remote are not even returning back to their offices. And a lot of them struggled with like remote project management. How do I manage a team that's not around a board or around a table in a boardroom? Like, this is totally outside of my realm. And there are people, even some of our students, that specialized in managing teams remotely and working virtually. And they were doing things like consulting with teams, and they were getting project manager jobs because they knew technology like Asana and Trello and tools that manage team really well. And so that's a good example of taking sort of maybe some transferable skills from your background and pouring it over into this new digital age as well. And, you think of social media as an example. You may have a PR background. You may have a background where you connect with people, you communicate, you've got good, maybe you were in sales where you did a lot of networking and a lot of in-person interactions. And that suddenly seems to have a natural sort of transition to social media management, because you're connecting, yes, in a different medium, but nonetheless, the skill set and the background, it kind of meshes. So that's trying to get in tune with your proficiencies. And again, that's what we said earlier, Lauren, have somebody that your champion, your person that will, reinforce what you're good at, so that you don't sell yourself short on the things that you should be transferring into your VA business or into your e-commerce business or whatever you're going to be starting.
Yeah. I love that you talked about this idea of connecting the dots and like these transferable skills. This is something we have to cover a lot in our community, because I kind of separate the distinction between skills and tasks. A lot of people come into my community, they've been a stay-at-home mom, they've been in the nursing field, they've been in education as a teacher, they've done all these things, and they come and they're like, a virtual business, I don't have any skills. And I'm like, you have lots of skills, you just haven't done these particular tasks, but you are equipped with skills. And if I can help you, if Craig can help you, if someone can help you connect the dots, you can learn how to do these new tasks because you are already equipped with the skills. And so I think we have to like learn to separate those. I love the word proficiencies. I think that's great. And I think even just taking an assessment, you talked about work skills, but even life skills, because there are a lot of stay-at-home moms. They've been running their house, they've been doing the budget, they've been booking the appointments and, taking care of their family and doing the meal planning and there are skills that you have that are transferable and not as distant for what you would need to be a virtual assistant as you might probably believe when you first, come into it. So I love that. All
Yeah,
right.
I was just going to ask you, or just mention one other thing. I interviewed this gal that specializes in product launches. So she's a product launch manager for companies like ours, like course creators, and she went through. She was teaching at an upcoming summit that we're running, and we were pre-recording the event. And she went through all of these systems and workflows of how you put together a launch. And I had wished that maybe we would have hired her at some point along the way, because she was brilliant. And she is exactly that. She's got a family. She's very, in terms of organizational management, she's got
Yeah.
it nailed. And it's poured over into these cool little, and she has these, I couldn't pull it off, but she showed me these color coded calendars that she created for launches, like during your pre-launch and your pre-launch and your launch and your post-launch. And it was like, this is awesome. And I know that didn't just land on her lap. And so suddenly she just was like, poof, I'm a product launch manager and I have all these skills. It's all of these other qualities that she carried over. And then she learned some technology and some tools that sort of pieced it all in together into this amazing career that she has. So
That's great. Good for her. All right, bring us home, Craig. What's the fourth P?
yes, the fourth P is profitable niches. Okay. And so this is it, this is a really interesting one, because you could have the other three P's nailed down. You're like, this fits my personality. I love this stuff. I'm good at this stuff, but there's nobody in the world that's going to hire me to do this. So then it just becomes a hobby. So if you have all those areas, it's hobby based. It's like people, you go and you watch shows like the Shark Tank, and you see some of these people pitch a business that just doesn't have viability. For whatever reason, it's not meant to be. And they're just slogging away, spending all their family's life savings. And then they get the hard smackdown by the shark saying, go do something else. Stop this
Mr.
now.
Wonderful. It's Mr. Wonderful. That's
Mr.
the worst
Wonderful
thing I've ever heard on this show. He's brutal.
He's like, run away from this business right now into doing something else.
But he's doing this because of this fourth P, right? He's like,
yes,
you're not going to get your money back.
yeah. And so that's why we created this, what we call this as a matrix. You can't look at each of them in isolation. And so you have to, at the end of the day, whatever you do, I mean, you have to have this P. So you could have, for example, it fits my personality and I'm good at it and it's profitable. In other words, there's opportunities. Okay, that's giving me enough to know that I can go down this road. I may not be white hot passionate about it right now, but I may get there, just like snowboarders get there. So you can do that. I mean, you can even have passion and personality where you're like, this totally fits me, but I need some skill development. I need to take classes with Lauren or myself and just level up a little bit, and then I'll get there. But as long as it's something that people are actually needing and that will, I can get work in, that's a big deal. So yeah, so it always has to align in what does the market say? What are the opportunities? And so this is sort of the area that we focus on most at our university. Is we spend a lot of time researching and identifying the trends and saying, even during COVID-19, what were some of the biggest areas that our students found the most success in? And so let me rattle off a few examples. And these won't necessarily be a whole list of everything, because there's so many different areas to get into. And so the first one I would say is e-commerce. We saw, if you want to call it, Main Street businesses that were shut down during COVID and didn't recover very well, they needed to make a pivot. And so there were people setting up online stores through Shopify or using WordPress plugins like WooCommerce to like launch these stores. And we, because we're a fairly agile university and we can create courses like, unlike other universities, we can create them almost overnight if we feel the demand. We went into the e-commerce training business in April, and we created a brand new Shopify course. We brought a Shopify expert in to teach us, and then we launched it to our students. And one of the gals, her name is Janine, in our community. She's a mom of 5 children. Like me, 5 kids, and her husband was laid off right at the beginning of COVID. So looking at February, March, he lost his job, and so she was doing her VA thing, and she was making some money, but she realized I need to ramp things up, and so she took our Shopify training, got trained up in Etsy, and now she's built this full-time business, working with Etsy shop owners and Shopify store owners, doing their day-to-day billing. She does customer support for them. She does design their shops, add products. So that's an example of one area that has seen growth. So doing something in e-commerce, and it may not be the tech side, that may not be your thing. It might be more like customer support, where you work with e-commerce companies and you do their support, or you're their OBM, their VA. You do a lot of their administrative back end that makes their business and their store run. So that was a big growth area that we saw, Lauren, in 2020, now into 2021. And then the other area is even course creation. So learning course platforms. So in the last year, we saw a whole bunch of speakers that make their living speaking and go to conferences, as you go to conferences and I go to conferences, that ended, at least on an in-person level.
Mhm.
And so all of those people were looking at, how do I package my knowledge and my expertise into courses? But in terms of making that pivot to what platform do I choose? How do I set up Kajabi, or how do I set up Thinkific or Teachable? We then also had training on that. So we were teaching our students how to do all of the back-end course platform work so that they could become the Teachable specialist, become the Kajabi person. And those have presented huge opportunities, because there's these experts that have money and they have knowledge, but they have no interest in doing all the integration and doing the uploads of their courses and formatting their PDFs and those sort of things. So that's been a big growth area our students have found good success in as well. So e-commerce, course creation, digital marketing. So having skills in digital marketing is huge. That could be email marketing. So working with a client and you're managing their ConvertKit account. You send out their broadcasts, you build their newsletters. We've had students that just specialize in one platform. They are a ConvertKit, you know, specialist for women coaches. And they are finding their niche and their groove just in that lane. And so email marketing is a great space. Even search engine optimization. Businesses still want to get found in the search engines. I know, Lauren, I'm sure you love it when your YouTube videos show up, get ranked for keywords that you want them to get ranked for.
I was gonna
And so,
say we put out a video earlier this year, and I'm more in the service industry, so
yeah,
e-commerce is sort of on my radar. I know that service providers help e-commerce, but
yeah,
not as educated there. But the e-learning, digital marketing, something else that I'll add to the digital marketing, which you have alluded to, is like the specialist within digital marketing. So
mhm,
I'm seeing less people looking for the general social media manager and more people looking for a YouTube manager, like you said,
absolutely.
email marketing, that like someone who is extremely, to borrow your word, proficient in a particular platform, so that they can get very high tangible results, with that particular strategy.
Absolutely. And when we talk about niche, finding your niche, it's not just the service side, it's what we're focusing on. It's also the audience as well. So and when you start off a business, you typically don't often go really narrow. Like I'm working with women life coaches in the West Coast of Australia, or something like really, really niche. You might start a little broader, but you eventually find your group, your people. It might be real estate agents. It might be women coaches. It might be hobby-based businesses. It might be Etsy store owners. And so you eventually have this specialization that is attached to an audience. And so let's say I'm a sci-fi author and I need somebody, I'm looking for a PR, a book marketing person for my sci-fi books. And I come across a site that this person is a proofreader and they're a book marketer for sci-fi authors. Suddenly there's this sort of like credibility that rises, because not only are you offering the services I need, you seem to be speaking to the audience that fits me. That's who I am. So when you find those, and that's not something you discover right away, but over time you find your sweet spot and say, I love working with these people. These people desperately need me, and I have services that I can offer them of great value. So that's a beautiful thing. So digital marketing, yeah, social media is a great growth area. And then I would say that we started our business training VAs. And, it's interesting, Lauren, when you Google virtual assistant now, you'll get, in the first page of Google, you'll get 50% robot type virtual assistant articles on the rise of the virtual assistant, which is these bots that you don't know whether you're talking to a computer sometimes when you're live chatting. Initially, they eventually hand you off to a human. And then 50% of the listings are on that first page are human virtual assistants. And, even though, yes, there's the rise of the digital bot and all that stuff, there's also the rise of human virtual assistants. predominantly because with all these businesses going remote, a lot of people recognize that they don't need an in-house administrative person anymore. They'll work remotely. And we have a job board at our university. And one of the jobs that came in recently was a fellow that was a dietitian in California. His business got shut down. And so he turned into sort of virtual work, and he had to let I guess, I don't know who his office administrator was, but he came to us looking for somebody that could do virtual administration. And it was a totally foreign concept. And Kelly actually did the heavy lifting on that, but she worked with him to help him understand how you could work virtually with an office staff, so that you can keep your business running and keep all your back-end systems moving. And long and the short of it is he hired a gal from our community, 20 hours a week. She's working 80 hours a month, built around her schedule and her life. And so that whole movement is growing substantially. Virtual assistants, online business management. The last one I'd say, Lauren, and there's, again, lots of other ones I could share, is like podcasting, like podcast, video editing, audio editing, podcast production, even knowing Zoom. I mean, goodness, how many people are doing Zoom webinars, Zoom, being able to coordinate a virtual summit,
Yep.
like one that we're hosting here in the next month. So, or at this recording, it'll probably be past, but yeah. So even coordinating virtual summits, that's a whole skill set. And if you have a background in event planning, or you just naturally go back to that first P personality, you're just wired for coordinating events. You're the one that put on big parties, and suddenly that becomes a skill set that you can use in the digital realm as, a virtual summit coordinator, which is a big area right now. So those are a few that I am excited about, and I think are going to see some good growth. So
that's awesome. And I love that last one, because I have a student she's presently building a course. So this e-learning, which we're seeing the rise of this industry.
Yes.
She is a former event planner, and she teaches people who basically lost their businesses last year how to keep it going and transfer, again, those transferable skills, how to use them in an online capacity, and helping people with virtual events and summits. So that's awesome.
Very cool.
Well, we have something very cool coming up. I'm very excited. You're going to be coming into the Free Mama community on Tuesday, August 3rd at 10:30 a.m. We'll put the link down below here in the notes. And we're going to talk even more about Freelance U, about the ways that you support freelancers and helping them develop those skills so that they can get the clients, feel confident about the work that they're doing. And I know, not to be too dramatic, but so they can change their life. I mean, freelancing literally changed my life. And I think when you feel confident and you feel good and eventually feel passionate about the work that you do, it can be really transformative, not just for you, but for the impact you make on other business owners. So do you want to add anything about that?
Yeah, I think what we'll teach in that session is just a framework on how you start and grow. So some of you might have actually begun, and you're like, well, how do I scale? Like, how do I scale while still do my life and not get to the place where I'm burnt out and I'm not enjoying my life? And then we'll also give you a framework on how you get going. How do you start, and what are some steps you could do now that will set you up for success and allow you to still move relatively quickly, because the gig economy, as we're calling it, or the freelance economy, is sort of primed for growth right now. And so this is the time to dive in. And so we're going to show you sort of a simple framework on how you can start relatively quickly as well.
Awesome. Well, we'll put all kinds of links down below, how you guys can get in touch with Craig, how you can learn more about Freelance U. We'll give you that invitation to that event on Tuesday, August 3rd. Craig, thank you so much for coming on Free Mama TV, for teaching us all about these 4 Ps, how to discover your niche. I think this was super valuable.
Thanks a lot, Lauren. Appreciate it.